What we're doing today isn't medical advice. It is not just, it is the young people's experiences and feelings and opinions. Um, we're not going to be answering many questions from the chat. We've got so many, you guys have sent in so many questions. I really, really hope we get through them all. We might not, but let's give it a go. Please do feel free to post in the chat anyway, and we'll take a note of your questions, or Jacqueline will do her best to answer as well.
Hi everyone, my name is Julia. I'm 23 years old, and my little son Jacob has cystic fibrosis. So the reason I joined YAG is to find out a bit more from young people with CF, how I can help my son in the future, and just to unite in the cystic fibrosis community. Um, I'm gonna ask everyone to introduce themselves, say their age, your connection with CF, and one thing you are proud of in your life, or one thing you are excited about doing this year. So one thing I'm excited about doing this year is to start my physiotherapy masters at York University. Is there anyone who would like to go first? Introducing themselves?
I'll go.
Go on, Tilly. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tilly. I'm 17. I was diagnosed with CF at 10 days old, and something I'm proud of is I've recently qualified to be a swimming teacher. So that's fun. Hello.
Ella, would you like to go next?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Ella. I'm 15. I've got cystic fibrosis, and one thing I'm excited for is to go to summer camp in France.
That'll be amazing. Thank you. Zara, are you happy to go next for me, please?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Zara. I'm 20 years old and I have cystic fibrosis. One thing that I'm proud of in my life is that I've lived independently since the age of 18 and have taken on the responsibility of managing all my prescriptions, my hospital visit, my healthcare, whilst balancing university and going to the gym every day, as I'm very dedicated to my fitness. I've never let cystic fibrosis get in the way of anything that I do. Traveled the world, been to all the concerts that I'd always wanted to go to, and I've done so many amazing things, and I'm grateful that I've been blessed with the ability to do so.
That is definitively something to be proud of. Well done, Zara. Rosie, would you like to go next, please?
Hi, I'm Rosie. I'm 16 years old and I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis at about 2 weeks old. And one thing that I'm very proud of is I recently earned my brown belt in kickboxing, which was a very, very long 2-hour grading session, which was a lot of work, but I managed to through and get it done. And I was very proud of myself for that.
Well done, Rosie. Thank you for introducing yourself. Taya?
Hi, I'm Taya. I got diagnosed with CF when I was around 2 weeks old, and I'm really proud of myself for being in Dynamo the Magician's recent program that's just come out on Sky, dancing with my dance school.
Thank you, Taya, and well done. And I believe Chawan is left to introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Chawan. My connection to cystic fibrosis is that I have a younger brother who was diagnosed with CF as a baby. There's a 2.5 year age gap between us, so I was a toddler when he was diagnosed. I don't really remember it. And I'm excited to turn, oh, I'm 15, and I am excited to turn 16 this year and have my sweet 16.
Perfect, thank you. I believe that's everyone now. Yes?
Well, that'll be me. I think I
Okay, so we'll start by reading the first question, and Tilly will be the first one to answer. So, do you think CF has positives or has helped you to achieve things you wouldn't have without it?
Yes, definitely is the short answer. I think CF has many, many positives. And every time somebody asks me, I always say that I feel very lucky to have CF because of all the opportunities it's given me, like this and other things with YAG, and the community it's given me. And probably a bit more topical is the doctors and the CF team that have been part of my life, that I've now said goodbye to because I'm leaving pediatrics to go be an adult, which is scary. But they were amazing and were a really great rock for my parents. So I would definitely say that I'm sure all of you have a really great team behind you who all have your child's best interests at heart, and they'll always be amazing and funny and give your child lovely memories of being in hospital, which is not a lot of things a lot of kids can say when they have to go in hospital. But I have so many memories of being in hospital, which is really weird to say, but it's amazing. So yes, I think CF has as many positives as you are willing to create, I think.
Thank you, Tilly. Thank you very much. So now we will pass on to Rosie. Rosie, do you have a first memory of realizing that not everyone has cystic fibrosis? Our 17-month-old pats us if we ask him to, and I just wonder when he will notice he's the only one getting patted, and it's not what happens to everyone.
Yeah, I do have quite a specific memory, and I can remember it really well. I was about 3 or 4 years old, and I was either just leaving nursery or I was just starting school. I can't remember the exact time period, but I do remember sitting about to take my crayon, and I looked around and I realized none of these kids are taking crayon as well. And then it kind of clicks in my head, and I was like, oh. And for me, it was less of a earth-shattering realization, but obviously it might not be like that for everyone. But in my case, it was just oh, not everyone has to do this. But my parents were very good with it all growing up, so I never really had too much of an issue with that fact.
Thank you very much, Rosie. Great story to share. So the next question is, when did you start talking?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt you, Julia. I just kind of because I forgot to say this to us, to everyone, to the YAG before we started. Just if you do have anything to add after you've the person who the question's been allocated to. God, sorry, I can't get my words out. If you have anything to add, just give a little wave because yeah. Sorry, Julia. Continue.
No worries. If there is anyone waving, wanting to add something, just stop me because I can't see everyone. So please just. Okay, so when did you start talking to your friends about CF? Taya, would you like to go first for this one?
Yeah, I started talking to my friends when I was around about 12. In primary school, I went to a really small primary school. Really, everyone knew everything about everyone because, the teachers would make it really obvious. I had nurses coming in to talk to the whole class about why I would have to leave lesson or why I didn't come to school as much as everyone else because of hospital appointments. But really, secondary school is when I started to tell people and started to take it on myself. And I didn't really want it to kind of be people I didn't know knowing. So I just made sure that I had my friends and I really trusted them and I was really close with them. And that's when I kind of started to tell them. But I think with me, it was kind of like I didn't want everybody to know just because of it being secondary school and, I didn't know them as much as I knew my primary school and go from a small primary to a big one was a big change for me. So I wanted to keep it close and personal and it helped a lot just knowing that I had my only friends. They knew and it was just that.
Thank you. Ella, would you like, to add anything to that question?
Yeah, I'd just say mine's very similar to Taya's. I can remember coming into primary school a day early so a nurse could talk to all the teachers. And honestly, no one cared at primary school, for me at least. And when I moved to secondary school, I told no one, not everyone at once, still not all of my friends know, but my closer ones do, and they're amazing about it. So yeah.
That's really nice to hear. Thank you very much, girls. So, do you tell people about your CF or only if it comes up? Do you feel embarrassed opening up about it at school? If you were open about it, then how did people react? Zara, are you happy to go first?
Yeah, of course. So I kind of only bring it up to people that are close to me, as in I'd start the conversation because I feel like it's quite important for the people around you and that are around you a lot to know. Not so much like if you're just seeing them, I don't know, just like on the odd occasion, because it's not something they'd witness really. But if you're with people a lot of the time, I think it's quite important for people to know. When I was in primary school, I wanted everyone to know. I was like, this is me. Everyone needs to know this about me. I did assemblies, I did fundraisers, I was selling reindeer food at like Christmas fairs. Everyone had to know about it. And when I moved on to secondary school, I think kind of became a bit more self-conscious because like it's secondary school, you want to fit in. The last thing you want is for the whole school to know that you're different because of this, and this. So it was just kind of like a keep it very on the down low, only told my closest friends. But I mean, the people that I did tell never ever made me feel embarrassed or uncomfortable. Everyone's so supportive. And I just think moving up in secondary school, having that already built up around you when more people do find out, and they will, because, for example, why has Zara not been in class for the last 2 weeks because I'm in hospital, things like that. So it does get around. So then you do become more open of it and more proud of it, and you want people to know. And it's not something to be ashamed of or to feel like an outsider. It's just one of those things that you have, and people get more accepting of it as they get to know you as a person.
Thank you very much. Ella, do you have anything to add?
No, no, that's good.
Everything's been said. And Taya?
No, everything's been said.
Yeah, we got to move on to the next one. Thank you very much. So Chawan, how do you feel about having not CF when your brother does? Does it have any impact on your relationship?
So as I mentioned earlier, my brother and I have a really, really small age gap. And because of that, I don't remember the time he was diagnosed. So I don't remember a time before cystic fibrosis was a part of my family's life. And because of that, it's always been a part of our lives. I'm indifferent to the fact that he has CF, and not in a way as in I don't care, as in it doesn't really make that much of a difference, and it doesn't impact me. It was something that I accepted growing up and accepted as something that was part of genetics. It wasn't in my control. And yeah, so overall, it doesn't impact our relationship and it doesn't change anything other than the fact that I am a bit more cautious around him in terms of bacteria and infections. Because I remember growing up, my mum enforced that, but no, it doesn't impact our relationship.
Thank you, Chawan. So on to the next question. Do you feel you've been treated differently if people knew you have cystic fibrosis? Taya, if you would like to answer this.
I think for me, I got treated differently, but in a really good way. I feel like people made sure that if they were sick, they would stay away from me, so that I didn't get what they were getting. I feel like for me, if I obviously my friends who knew if they was around something like obviously like CFS can't be near smoke, so they'd like, they'd take me away if I wasn't realizing that I've come near like someone who's smoking. Um, so they'd like in their best interest, do stuff that will help me, even if I don't realize if they're noticing something, they'll help me out as much as they can. And I think that was the best thing for me, knowing that I've always got people on my backs, because all of my people that like knew that, like my friends, nothing bad ever came from them, all in like my best benefit. So I think being treated can be like differently can be a really helpful thing. And I don't think I've ever been like upset that I've been treated differently, because it's just really helpful in like the best situations.
That's what you need good friends for. Thank you, Taya. Tilly, how was your experience with that?
I think Taya's kind of experience of like the positive being treated a little bit differently is really accurate, and I hope a lot of other people experience that. I know I did. But I would just say I think maybe the question might also be talking about like negatively. And I would say that you can't really control what other people kind of think about CF, and if they do think some crazy things about it, it's just because they're like uneducated. But if people like treat you with like pity or with kind of like sadness, a lot of people hate that. But I would think that kind of strongly believe that that would come from how you view your own CF. So if you kind of complain about it a lot, and it's fine to complain, but it depends to which people and how much, and if you treat it as if it's like a burden or something to like be ashamed of, then it's likely that other people around you are gonna do the same and kind of make you feel worse about it. So I'm a strong believer in kind of being very positive and optimistic about CF, and I think that kind of positivity and treating it as if it's normal and it's great kind of rubs off on the people around you, and you get, if you're ever treated differently, it would probably be positively. So that would kind of be my advice.
Thank you, Tilly. Thank you, Taya. So Ella, have you ever felt self-conscious of your CF, and how have you dealt with this? Do you have any tips for how to help a 7-year-old feel more confident about their CF?
I think I have felt a little bit self-conscious, like if I need to do some physio or something and there are people in the house, if my parents have friends over or just for whatever reason, I am less inclined to do it. But I'd take it to a different room. I'd say for younger children, just like let them do it somewhere else if they don't want to do it around someone. Or like do it quietly, but do remind them it's nothing to be self-conscious about, and it's the best thing for them to do what they need to do. And yeah.
Thank you, Ella. Zara, do you have any other advice?
Yeah, I just want to say I have CFRD, which is cystic fibrosis related diabetes. And specifically, as in your teenage years, I was diagnosed, I think I was 12, so kind of like beginning of secondary school, and going to like sleepovers with like new friends and going out with people that you're not necessarily that close to, and having to do your insulin. To me, that made me feel very, very self-conscious, to the point where I'd avoid even doing it in the mornings and just wait until I get home to eat or do any of my other medication because I felt self-conscious. And I think that's kind of a natural thing when you're a teenager, especially with new people. And I think as I built stronger bonds with these people and they learned more about what CF was, the fact that I had it, what I need to do, why I do what I do, it got so much easier and I was less self-conscious. And you just go in another room or go into the bathroom and just do it and do what you need to do, and no one cares, like literally no one cares, and if they do care, they're not your friend and they're not your people.
100% agree. Thank you very much, girls. Okay, Rosie, how do you manage your medication and physio at school? How is it when you were at primary school, and how did it change as you grew older?
So with primary school, I didn't have as much control over like my medications. It was the nurse's office had my crayon in. I'd go there and take it for lunch. I'd go there if I needed it. It was when I got to secondary school, I got more control over it, and it was as I started secondary school that I was diagnosed with CF-related diabetes. That is when I had to take a lot of control because I had to do insulin. I had to inject that before my lunch. At that point, I was allowed to have my crayon in my bag with me. So that's kind of when the control and all that got put onto me. It's like, right, okay, like this is your responsibility now. I'd say my parents were quite slow with it. As a kid, I'd always know how many crayon I'd need to take for my food and stuff like that. And I could list off all the medications. So it definitely made that transition to being more responsible for my own treatment when I moved to secondary school easier because I already kind of knew what I was doing. Now I'm in college and it's just fully up to me at this point. So yeah, I think just making it gradual does make it a lot easier when you get to secondary school, because then it's not as like kind of being thrown into the deep end of it. It makes it a lot easier.
Thank you very much, Rosie. What are some examples of the best help you've received? Do you have any ideas for what more people or parents could do to support you? Tilly, if you would like to answer this one for us, please.
Yeah. So I know that all of you are parents of people with CF, but I reckon my parents have been pretty solid in the help they've given me. So I would talk about my friends, because like a lot of people have already said, I think my friends have given me the best help by treating CF as if it is normal and as if it is fun and cool and interesting, which obviously my parents have done as well, but you know, they're my parents. And my friends are really cool, because they follow the Sea of Trust on Instagram and things, and they when every time I see them like a post, when even though it's those like the most boring like statistic and they've liked it, it just makes me feel like so happy and so like supported, and it's really like quite out of character for some of them. So the fact that they would like do that for me, it's the easiest thing in the world, but it really makes it a lot nicer that they kind of accept CF as kind of something that comes with me as well. And they've made me feel so much better about it. And because this is for parents, I would say that I think my parents have helped me kind of develop really awesome friendships, because they've pushed me to kind of educate people and be advocates for CF. And because of that, it means I don't feel like I need to hide it. And I like educating my friends about it, and they think it's really interesting and they like to ask questions. But I think I'm a bit of an extrovert, so that might have that might have just been me. But yeah, definitely by kind of treating CF as if it is interesting and something worth sharing with a bunch of people, it's meant that my friendships have gotten so strong and just really quite cool. And it's quite like an interesting, unique thing to have, and it should be celebrated. So yeah.
It must be very nice to have your closest people around you follow whatever you're doing. Thank you very much, Tilly. Do you and your brother ever discuss what it means for him to have CF?
I think Ella gave a little wave. Did you give a little wave, Ella?
Sorry, Ella, come on.
Thank you. I Tilly just made me think of one really lovely example that one of my friends had for helping me. I think she was one of the first people I told at secondary school, and she'd read up about it online. And one time I was just coughing after running or something, and she then knew, because she'd read up about it by herself, to like come over and pat me on the back, and that really helped. And I think it was just sweet of her to take it into her own hands to learn what to do for me.
Oh, that's super cute. Thank you for telling us that story.
Yeah, that's lovely. And Rosie, I remember you saying about how your friends were always like, "Have you taken enough Creon?"
Yeah, my friends are because I told all my friends, and I got my best friend at school, and she knows everything there is to know about CF, and she will constantly kind of pester me. She's like, "Have you done your insulin? Have you taken your Creon? Are you sure you've taken it?" And she's very like there for me. Everything, we did a abroad trip together to school for 10 days, and she would say, "Have you done physio? Have you done this? Have you done the nebulizer?" And she's really great. And she defends me a lot. In secondary school, there was a lot of people who would make very stupid comments, and at the time, they would really get to me, and she'd always kind of stick up for me and like tell them to leave me alone and stuff. And I do really appreciate what my friends have done for me.
Thank you, Rosie. Thank you. So I'll pass on to Chawan. Do you and your brother ever discuss what it means for him to have cystic fibrosis between yourselves? Is he able to open up to you about certain things he wouldn't have discussed with your parents or other people?
My brother is a bit of an introvert, so he doesn't talk about CF to many people at all, if I'm being honest with you. So the few conversations that we do have about it, I appreciate him trusting me with that and wanting to talk. The things we tend to talk about, or the times we tend to talk about CF, are when we're about to go on holiday, we're planning a trip, and I'll talk to him about, maybe some of the extra precautions we need to take. Sometimes if we're at the shops, we'll talk about what foods he wants to pick out to stock up in the fridge in terms of things with lots of fat in them and what kinds of yogurt. But we don't always talk directly about cystic fibrosis. I might remind him to do his treatments, but that's it really. And when we go to school, we go to the same school, obviously, because we're both in secondary school now. He'll come and tell me when he feels unwell. But sometimes we'll talk about maybe some worries that he has when his treatment changes. That could be his meds or, physio schedule or anything else that's added or taken away, or maybe a test result that we're waiting for. So it's really up to him. He usually comes to me, and otherwise I just pester him, because if I pester him, he's not really going to tell me anything. So it's better for me to wait.
He must be really happy to have you as his sister. Taya, how did you cope with going from primary to secondary school? Was there anything you found particularly helpful at that time when managing that and your CF? Is there anything else you can think of that would have been helpful?
I think that my transition from primary to secondary school was really smooth. On the open day, it started straight away, my transition, without even knowing if I was going to the school. Every secondary school open day that I went to, my mum would go to the head teacher, say, look, she's got CF. Do you have anybody else in the school with CF? Obviously, you can go to school with someone with CF. It just includes risk assessments and all of that. And we just needed to know, because obviously if I got into one school with 3 people with CF or one school without, I'd prefer to go to the one without. So we spoke to the head teacher and he was like, okay, that's great. What's your name? He just remembered my name. And then when I found out I got into my secondary school, we called them up and my mum explained everything to who would be my head of year, the head teacher, and everything to know what to expect. Know that my attendance will be quite low and that I'm not skipping school, I'm not doing it on purpose. I genuinely do need the time off. And I think what could have made it smoother is my head teacher telling my teachers that I did have CF, because obviously going into lessons, if I'd be coughing a lot and need to leave, or I didn't have a medical card at the time, because in the end I did get sick of the teachers and I just said, can I just leave the lesson to my head of year? And she just gave me a pass that basically lets me leave the lesson. So that was really easy for me to leave lessons then. But I think with the teachers knowing I'd have CF, it meant I didn't have to talk about it in front of people in class if I didn't want to. And it would have made the whole classroom situation a lot easier. And I think that's the only thing I'd change about my transition, because it was the smoothest transition I could have had. And that's all I wanted.
Thank you very much, Taya. Really good advice. When going to parties and potentially...
a little wave.
Hello, sorry, Julia.
I'm really sorry, I can't see you.
Yeah, she can't see you, so just unmute yourself. You're not being rude. Just because otherwise I'm the one being like, hey, excuse me.
I would just say, I don't know if Taya also experienced this, but I had a lot of my interactions with the school like nurse, like the matron, not so much like the heads of like the departments or heads of year, but literally all through the matron, because she had like experience with CF. I didn't have anyone in school with CF, but she had a previous student, so she knew everything about it. And it meant that the school I go to now was out of our catchment area. But the school that is in the catchment area didn't know what CF was, and they kind of sounded a bit silly when we were talking about it. So we wanted the one with experience, so that meant we had to like appeal and things like that, which I think was a lot of stress for my like parents, but couldn't have been like a better choice, because I've had like 6 years of a lovely matron who knows exactly what CF is, and if I have like if I cough once and she's like, right, go home, so that's great. So if you feel like it's out, if there's a great school that knows what CF is and everything like that, I would 100% recommend doing everything you can to get into it, essentially, and talking to the matron or the nurse, because they'll help a lot. And if I went to the school that had no idea what CF was, I wouldn't have had like a lovely kind of smooth school. So yeah, I would say do the work to get into your best school, essentially, because you can appeal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Silly. When going to parties and potentially drinking, going to pubs or clubs, how do you deal with having Korean with your bag in your bag and being said by bouncers?
Yeah, so I have been to a fair share of pubs and clubs and parties. I mean, I've done freshers, so that was quite an experience. But I have never been like physically searched by a bouncer. I don't think they're actually allowed to search you. It's not often that I take a bag with me because, you're in a club, you've been drinking. If you've got a bag with you, you're gonna lose it. It does happen. So I tend to just have a couple crayon tablets in my pocket or in like a little Ziploc in my pocket. And yeah, I've never had any issues ever with having Korean, even going to concerts where they search your bag. And as long as it's in a pot, it says what it is, and often it's got your name on it. So I don't think they ever really care or would question what it is.
Thank you very much. Next question is for Zara and Rosie. At what age did you start taking a bit of control over your CF, just such as the medications, physio, things like this? Did you want to start being more independent, or would you have preferred a parent or a carer to be responsible for it all?
I'd say, I mean, like I said earlier, my parents made me quite involved with my treatments from a very young age. So for me, it was when I was very little. It was okay. So I could list up when I was 6. I could list off medications. As I got older, I could tell you what they all needed to do. And I think it was probably about when I was 11 or 12, we kind of gradually moved on to me being responsible for all of it. So it was as I started secondary school, I got a lot more independence. And obviously, it was a very slow transition. It started from, hey, do you want to do physio now? And then it stopped reminding me as much, and they stopped watching me do it. And now it gets to the point now where if I go grab my physio bag, I go do physio, I do it all, and it's now fully on me. But it really helped having this kind of slow, gradual build up from a very young age. It was just very helpful overall. When you're 6 years old and I could tell people all the stuff I had to take throughout the day, which was good for if I went to sleepovers, I could tell people, the parents, what I needed, which it definitely is a good kind of gradual build up to being fully independent of your own treatments. And I'm very glad my parents did that with me because it worked really well.
Thank you, Rosie. Zara, would you like to add anything to this question?
Yeah, I think it was very similar for me. It was a very gradual move onto becoming more independent. I mean, I've always been a very independent person, so I was kind of very eager to start taking control and just doing everything myself. My parents were always very hot on it all the time, especially my dad. He was very hot on everything. Even now, he's very hot on it. And I am very independent. I do all my own hospital visits. I do all my own medication. I have done for the last maybe 4 or 5 years since I was 15, 16. But he does still come to my CF clinics with me, just not even to talk or say anything, just for company. And I think having such a close bond with him is really helpful to have that, and just to have that little push to just come out of it, but to still have that security blanket to fall back on as you do become solely independent and doing everything yourself. Sometimes it is very difficult, and our parents do so much for us, and they have that experience your whole childhood of doing everything for you. I think it's good to have that balance of doing it yourself, but still having that little push every now and then from your parents.
Thank you for that, Zara. So Ella, any tips or things that you have found really useful or helpful with your CF that would benefit the younger children now?
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest tips is make the physio fun. When I was younger, we've got a trampoline in our garden, which I love, and I didn't realize there was extra physio until quite recently. I had cool whistles, I could blow bubbles. It was great. Another one is tell them explain things like what this nurse is going to do, or what this medicine or treatment will do for you, so that they know what's going on and they're not like confused or in the dark. And Like independence is great, but if they still need help, do give it to them. Like go at their pace. And the biggest tip I have is if they'd like to, please ask them if they want to join BBF or YAG. It's amazing. We do so many cool things and everyone's lovely.
I really do agree. Thank you, Ella.
Also, hi. Just bouncing off of what Ella was saying about making physio fun, something I noticed with my brother, obviously I know that everyone's physio looks different, but one of the things that he had to do growing up was he had a tube and he would put pom-poms in it and then he would blow the pom-pom out to, obviously to get the mucus moving. And that was incredibly dull and incredibly boring until that is my mom went and got multicolored pom-poms and all sorts of different colors. And yeah, and it became like a game almost. Seeing how far you could blow it, and the further it was, I don't know, you get a high five or something. And then it even made tidying up the pom-poms fun because it was like, right, you get the red ones, I'll get the orange ones, and then and then I'll get the black ones, and we'll see who can get them all the colors the fastest. And it became more entertaining. And we also had a trampoline outside, like you, Ella, and we also had one in the house, like a mini one, because that was also part of his thing. He had to jump, and we thought jumping on a trampoline is 100 times more enjoyable for like a 5-year-old. So yeah.
Really good. Thank you, Sharon. So when did you discover the enormity of the situation? Did you Google? Did your parents share it with you? Do you have any tips for how to explain it without it being so scary?
I was always aware of CF, not necessarily that it was CF, but I was always aware that my brother had a condition because he obviously took medication more often than I did, and it was explained to me that it's because I didn't need it, but I didn't entirely understand what CF was. And I just, at some point, I thought the amount of medication he was taking was normal. I thought everyone knew someone that did that until I understood that that wasn't necessarily the case. It wasn't until I was in maybe P4, so I would have been around 7, that I became more aware of what was going on and I started to ask more questions. This was mainly also because around this time my brother started to get admitted because for flare-ups and for IV treatment. And I asked questions, I got some answers, but obviously I was quite young, so they might not have been the most detailed. And then again, as I got older, I started to research it. I started to go online. I would read off of the CF Trust page. I read 5 Feet Apart. I watched the movie, just like that kind of like, I'm gonna find out everything I possibly can. 5 Feet Apart, great book, by the way. I highly recommend. Heartbreaking, but great. Yeah, and then again, my mom started to explain things to me in more depth. And then it got to a point where she would, or as she does now, she kind of updates me on what happens at the appointments. And if I can, I might tag along. And yeah, I think the thing is, don't make it sudden and just make it gradual and build up to it so that the sibling is just more aware of what's going on and is a bit more involved. And if they have questions and they're old enough to ask the question, they can receive an answer because that means they're aware of what's going on. But yeah, I mean, with this knowledge and more understanding, I kind of went on to do talks about CF at school, and I went to a primary school and I talked to them and I started organizing fundraisers and presentations, and I wrote an article for YAG. And I learned a lot about cystic fibrosis from YAG, matter of fact. I mean, I didn't know much about Kaftrio until I joined YAG, and that's because my brother wasn't taking Kaftrio. So I don't know, the more people you talk to, the more you know. And also it comes up in school as well, sometimes in biology, and that put the puzzle pieces in place when we started talking about genetics, and I kind of understood, yeah, the science behind it. But yeah.
Thank you, Joanne. How have you handled the uncertainty around cross-infection when you are out there living your lives? For example, if you are playing sport, would you check whether anyone on the opposing team has cystic fibrosis?
This is like a huge question, but it's a very good one. And to be honest, I wanted to answer this question because cross infection is something that I kind of I I kind of struggle with in like the nicest way. Like I don't care about it as much as I probably should. Because it can be a very dangerous thing and can make you ill and everything. But I don't ask people if they have CF. I probably have had some very lucky escapes where I've been in very kind of close spaces with people for a long amount of time. Like when I was doing my course to be a swimming teacher and I was meeting up with people all the time, and the place where I was doing it, the pool, they might not have known that CF can kind of affect if you kind of come in close contact. And so I have had some lucky escapes with it. But to be honest, my parents always kind of instilled in me that it cannot rule my life because that's a lot of hours worrying about cross infection when it's so out of your control and so hard to actually like police. It's so hard to even like try like containing yourself to only speak with people who are 100% sure doesn't have CF, and it's really weird thing to go and ask people because my parents always said that you could sit on a bus with someone with CF and never know, and suddenly you have a cough and we don't know where it's come from. Like I've had a lot of coughs, but I haven't been as ill as a lot of people with CF. So because of that viewpoint that I've had where I've been in hospital, but not for 2 weeks, only for a few days, it's kind of meant that my kind of life has got a little bit more like laid back around CF. And right now it's not done me any harm as much, and I think it's probably done me more good because of the amount of cool stuff I've done. But I really think that it's about your own personal boundaries, because there's absolutely no harm in double checking if someone on the opposite football team has CF. Like I don't see the harm in that, but it's definitely a big boundary where you need to work out if you're gonna ask people you're having a conversation with like on the street, or how far are you gonna go with it. The as far as we've gone is like school and work, that's it. And concerts, you don't say things like that. It's really hard to kind of put like a label on how much you're gonna control with CF. It's very hard, and so I wouldn't beat yourself up over it because kids get sick, people with CF get sick. It's just something that we all have to do. It's something that we are very good at bouncing back from a lot of the time, and we can move on afterwards. So just beware of your boundaries and beware that it's impossible to control. So why not just live your life, essentially?
Thank you, Tilly. That's a great answer. Thank you. I know it's a big question, so does everyone have anything to add? No? Good to move on. Okay, so Rosie. CF doesn't define a person, but it does seem to impact on most things in some way. How do new parents get the right mix between being open about the condition, but not making everything about CF?
I'd say there is a balance, and my parents, when I was very, very little, they'd be more cautious about taking me in like a barn, for example, just because they're worried kids touch everything, kids put things in their mouths. So my parents, when I was very little, were more worried, but they would always make sure that there was something that I could do that was just as fun. And when I got a little older, I wasn't a toddler that was constantly trying to eat anything I could get my hands on. It was a lot more safe. Like they'd take me into like the barns or the giraffe things at the zoo, and they'd just give me a mask to wear. And I think that worked really well for me because there was only really realistically probably one or two times I felt slightly left out, and that was just because it was a school trip and it was going in a barn and there wasn't really anything else for me to do, so I was just kind of outside. And then there was an indoor rainforest, but they were purely just using the same water. It was very stagnant. and obviously don't really want someone with CF near that much stagnant water, but they were in there for a very long time. So my mum, luckily, who was on that trip, took me to do some fun things instead, which definitely helped. I think it's just, I think every child with CF is different. CF doesn't affect no two people the exact same way. So I think it's just about what affects your child and what can be done safely. What way can you kind of like help reduce these risks and find ways to just enjoy things the same as any other kid would.
Thank you very much, Rosie, for answering this question. Moving on to the next one. What advice would you give parents to help support the young child when they are feeling cross about their CF? Tilly, if you would like to answer this one for us, please.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is giving them space to like make their kind of grievances known, and understanding that if they complain, they're not looking, they're usually, this is my experience, not looking for like solutions to a problem. They are just trying to get their kind of feelings out and just have a good release essentially. So I think kind of space to speak and kind of space to feel comforted as well. And I would also say that things people get cross about with CF, like treatments and kind of not maybe be able to do the same things as everyone, feeling a bit different, will likely all come down to the fact that they might feel a bit isolated. I doubt a lot of people have come face to face with someone with CF that they know of. Obviously, I just talked about cross infection, but they're not going to have friends in real life. Not that these people aren't my friends, but they're not going to be able to speak to their friends with CF in person. And so it can be a very isolating feeling when hospitals, you feel like you're the only one with CF ever, even though you speak to people online. You really feel like nobody has CF but you, and it can be quite a weird feeling. And for me, that's where a lot of my kind of annoyances and anger came from, because I thought nobody will ever understand me. And so it might sound like a big marketing plug, but seriously, like programs like Building Bright Futures and YAG can be very helpful in that, but doesn't just have to be YAG. Even watching YouTube videos about CF or reading blogs, kind of stories, diaries, Instagram accounts, very helpful. That kind of thing about anything to do with CF is so helpful, because it's likely that they're going to be talking about the same issues that you have, the same kind of angry feelings that you have. And even just knowing that one person has CF, and it's even better if a whole community has that same feeling as you, because it might not solve it, but it will feel like that one angry feeling is like a string that connects everybody, and that's how the community gets kind of made, because there's nothing like a complaint that brings people together. And so when we're on YAG and we're complaining about Creon and meds and hospitals, that's just us like building our bond. And it's me building my bond with CF, which is really cheesy, but it helps a lot. So as long as you know that someone else out there, and you've seen it with your own eyes, or you've heard it, has the exact same feeling as you, then you know that CF is a community, and that will really help, I hope. So yeah, just do whatever you can to kind of expose them to the community, essentially.
Thank you, Tilly. I really do agree. And from parents' perspective, I know sometimes it's not easy at all. It takes a lot of encouragement for the child to take that medication, to take Kaftrio, to take Creon. My son is absolutely fine with Creon capsules, but he really hates Kaftrio. For him, it comes like little sachets and granules. He always tells me it tastes disgusting. He doesn't want to take it. So I really have to try and like hide it in his food, and it takes a lot, but it's for them. And I usually explain the benefit it has for Jacob. So he's only 3, but I tell him so he gets used to it all, so he knows it's there to make him better. Thank you very much, Tilly.
Yeah, just thank you so much for saying such lovely things about YAG and building brighter futures. I just wanted to quickly say for everybody who doesn't know, because obviously you all know what YAG is because we're right here, but Building Brighter Futures is our program online for children aged between 6 and 14. So it's like the pre-YAG, and we do lots of like fun things online, which so we've got a kind of baking next week or the week after. We've got games nights, loads of different kind of fun activities. And Rosie, Tilly, I think it was just Rosie and Tilly. Oh, thanks, Jacqueline. She's put the link in the chat. Rosie and Tilly used to come to all those events when they were younger, and now are wonderful members of YAG. Sorry, I'll stop plugging our events now.
So the next question is, how have you managed overnight trips away with school? That's in terms of organizing medication, physio, cleaning your physio equipment. And we've got Taya.
So I not long went on one. I think it was just before summer holiday, so about July. I went on a long weekend away with my school. It was only to Wales, and I'm in England, so it wasn't, like it wasn't far. It wasn't far, but for me, my mum and like my whole family, we just understood, right? So I had a sit down conversation, right? What do we need to tell the teachers? What do you need to bring? All of this. We got it all ready in a big pile. Called the school and said, look, she's gonna have this, 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 and this. She's gonna have to have time where she can just sit down because she's gonna be tired. It was it was one of those like in the middle of nowhere, you've got activities all day, and the school was so helpful. They said, right, we'll make sure that she's got at least an hour just to kind of sit down. If she wants to go to sleep, she can go back to her room and sleep. She'll have time to do her treatments. She can bring as much medicine as she needs down. She can keep it in her room. Putting treatments in. So I did it in the staff room. I left it in there. And my mom did say, like, she gets really dizzy when she does a lot of activities. And obviously it was summer, so it was getting hot. They said that's completely fine. And, whatever she needs to do, she needs to do. Just let us know. If she needs to go back, she can go back. So the school were really helpful in everything for secondary school. And I also went on a week away in primary school, which was kind of my mum left towards like, I remember it was like an assembly we had, and she started speaking to the man who organised it. Like, I think it was my year 5 teacher. And she just said, can you keep her treatment in your staff room? Like, can you make sure that she does it and sit with her while she does it? For me in secondary, I just got left in my room, did what I needed to do, and then gave them like, put it in soak and all of that in the staff room. They would sit with me. They count all of the, like when I did my a cappella, they count the sets, the breaths, everything. They count everything they need to do. And they just kind of took the responsibility that my mum would do over that week. And I think they might have messaged her updates. I can't really remember. But they did a lot of stuff to help me when they put it in soak for me, obviously, because I was a 10 or something. I can't remember. But my mum was like, can you do it? Because I don't know. She's not really done it before. Like, can you just do it? They took it on straight away with no problems at all. And I think if you just sit and explain it, they won't have a problem. They genuinely won't, because it's their job. If they're going to go on a school trip, they know they're going to have these things. If they know there's going to be someone in the school that could potentially be going. With stuff like refrigerated medicine, because it was a long weekend, my nurses said, you know what, it's completely fine for her to not do a nebulizer. Do it on the morning before she goes and the afternoon when she comes back, and that's okay for her. Refrigerated medicine, they was completely fine with me taking anyway. I just thought it might be more hassle for me. But the school will definitely put things in place just for you to take, and your kids to take anything they need. If it does become a problem, then there will be ways around it. They will never say, look, your kid can't go. They will never say that. And then if they do, that's just not good on them. So there will always be things you can put in place where you can take all your needs, you'll have time, your kids will be able to say, look, I can't do it, and they will let them not be involved. Being left out, it doesn't really, like, they might feel a bit left out, but they know they wouldn't be able to do it anyway. Like they said, for me, one of the options was mountain biking. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it, and I prepared myself for that. So I think maybe as well saying to the teachers what activities are you going to be doing, So you can prepare your children saying like, you don't know if you'll be able to do this. So please don't get your hopes up. And even that's them, they won't feel as bad when they're not doing it. And they probably will put more stuff in place so that they can do something fun as well at the time. I had, I think I went kayaking, I went abseiling, a lot of stuff I didn't think I'd be able to do at the moment. At the time, I was completely fine. So it's also hard to plan ahead, and it's kind of an in the moment decision. But I think if you just put all the things in place, tell all the teachers what to expect, it should go really smooth. And that was a really good trip for me in the end, just knowing that I had all the support with me with all the teachers. They knew everything, they knew how to handle situations. And I, as well, felt comfortable being in a room with my close friends to do my treatment. And I knew when I was in primary school, being in a separate room where I wasn't as comfortable with the people I was with, that really helped as well. So there can be things in place of different rooms, different people, and it ran really smooth. So hopefully that helps.
Thank you, Taya. How was like for you, Ella? How did you manage away school trips?
Yeah, definitely a few similar things to Taya, like your parents telling the school what you were bringing. I say when you're older, talk to the teachers yourself. Like, do the dorm rooms have a sink in them, or do I need to go to a bathroom to wash things? And definitely the one most helpful thing for me is to know which teacher has the medicine bag, because it'll be like everyone's medicine in a big bag or a box, and to know which teacher is in charge of that so I can go to them directly for when I need something. And if it's, I mean, hopefully not, but if it's a longer trip, maybe plan for delays. So if you're, I don't know, taking the Eurostar, there might be a delay, so take more medicine than you'll think you'll need because you can't always plan ahead, like Taya said. And like think about your roommates. Are you comfortable doing it around them? Will you need to find a different space? And yeah, everything's been really good school trip, so it can definitely work. Like your child will have fun, 100%.
Thank you very much, Ella. Thank you, girls.
Can I add something to this question?
Of course you can.
So I, a few years ago, spent 10 days in Kenya with my school volunteering with African Adventures, and my school were absolutely incredible. We went to this parents' assembly thing where they explained to the parents what the trip was so the parents could decide if they wanted to sign their kids up to go on this trip or not. And just as the assembly ended, teachers saw my parents, they came over and they basically said, look, we have no problem. If Rosie wants to go on this trip, she can go on this trip. We will make sure that everything's in place. They were brilliant. One of the teachers stayed behind one day and my mum and dad brought all my meds and they explained everything. My teacher wrote everything down. She knew everything that had to be done. She knew what everything was. She knew all the like emergency stuff. She knew everything. And it got to the trip. I had a medical suitcase. My teacher was really great. She made sure everything got through to the through airport security fine, because airport security can be a bit of a nightmare with that much medication. We got to the trip. I was allowed to keep my medical bag in my room just because there was so much of it. And she'd come and check on me in the morning. She's like, hey, like, have you done all the stuff you need to get done? So yes, I have, thanks. And the entire trip was completely fine. I got everything done. This teacher was so great. I had to get my glucose monitor had to be replaced while we were out there, and she like watched loads of videos, learned how to fit them properly, and it was completely great. And I had an incredible 10 days, and it was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had.
Thank you, Rosie. So kind of following on from what you just said, do you think parents should allow their babies to do everything a child without CF can do?
Yeah, I'd say my parents with me, they would obviously like look into it, make sure that it's not going to put me in like an immediate position where they could give me something or do something that could like affect me. But if there was a way to get around that, I'd always do it. Like, I know a lot of parents have a lot of worries around like puddles and stuff and the bacteria that can hold. As a kid, the parents would go to a car park to the supermarket near my house, and we would walk around. I'd walk around with my dad and I'd jump into puddles and we'd have a great time. And personally, I never got I never got ill from it. It all worked great. My parents were very set on, because I have two older brothers, and my parents were very set on making sure I had the same childhood as them, and it was fine. And I know CF affects everyone very differently, like I said before. So it is just about knowing what risks affect your child, making sure there's a way, seeing if there's a way around them, and if there is, doing what it is, and if it's something that they can't do, then finding something else that is just as fun, and just making sure they can have the most fun they can, because when you're a kid, that is all you want to do.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Rosie.
Thanks so much. So we're handing over to me now to ask Julia some questions, but I just want quickly, just because there's been a couple of questions in the chat about it, and I actually got a couple of emails about this after I'd sent out the questions to YAG, about kind of, some of you have touched on it a bit, but it's about kind of playing muddy sports, where kind of issues around kind of like being around damp leaves and kind of getting messy and muddy. And I kind of just wondered if any of you wanted to kind of comment on that, or comment on something that was in the chat that was about kind of how we can make sure children don't feel left out. And I don't want to put you on the spot, Zara, and you can absolutely say, no, I don't want to answer this. But what I've just realised is I didn't put your name next to one of the questions you wanted to answer. And I'm so sorry about that. And so I just wanted to throw this over to you as a bonus question, if you do have anything to say on it.
Oh, thank you very much. I didn't even realise, but thank you. I would just say, I think my parents never stopped me from doing anything unless it was actually harmful to my health. So like I didn't go in greenhouses or like damp and wet, moist, like areas like that, because of obviously bacteria grows in wet and hot areas. So I never went in any places like that, but just kind of let the kids be kids, like jump in puddles, go to parks, go to theme parks, go in the soft play. Just bear in mind, be more cautious of obviously the risk of bacteria. But if you forever try and keep away from all germs and everything, you're not really living your life. And I think a very important thing with CF is never, don't hold yourself back from doing anything, live life. And I think that's a very important thing to do. And things like washing your hands straight away, and just not really like, I would say, like sharing things, like sharing cups and stuff like that, definitely not. But things like playing in muddy puddles and going to the parks, I'd say that's definitely something that you should encourage.
Thank you, Zara. Does anyone else have anything they want to add on that one? Go on, Ella.
Yeah. I just like to say that of course you should find a balance of how to keep your child safe and have fun. But I just wanted like to say that you can take as many precautions as you want. They can still get sick, and it's not always something you can control. So you do definitely need a balance of having fun but staying a bit safer.
Thank you, Ella. So I'm now going to ask Julia a couple of questions, because these were a couple of questions that none of the others chose, but that Julia felt she could give answers to as a mum. So there was one that was, is there anything that parents should look out for when they choose a school for their child with CF? We've actually touched on this a little bit earlier, but Julia, do you want to share your experience of that?
Yes, it kind of got answered already, but I will just tell you my experience. I'm currently in the process of applying for a school for the first time, and unfortunately, our first choice had someone with cystic fibrosis in there already. So from a first choice, it went to a last choice, just to be on the safe side, because the other two choices, they have no one with CF, and it's kind of close to our home anyways. So it's just a safer option, and that's what I decided to do. So just look out for it. Make sure before you apply, you call them, or you go to the reception, explain your situation, and ask if there is anyone with cystic fibrosis. From what I've been told by our cystic fibrosis team previously, when I asked them about it, they said even if there is someone with CF, but they're in a higher class, higher group, they are, a risk assessment has to be done. How likely are they to meet on breaks? How likely are they meet to when they come to school, when they go home at the end of a day, and things like this. But it's really up to you. If you have a safer choice to send them to a school with no one with CF, it's best choice in my opinion. But if you don't have this choice, you don't have this choice. You just need to, do the risk assessment, make sure that the teachers are aware not to put them together at any time. And also be aware of things like a healthcare plan and educational healthcare plan. I'm not sure if any of you girls have got it in school, but I know something like this exists, and I think about applying for one for my son. I got told it helps with like attendance, any extra help that they will need, and stuff like that. I would advise to get everything that may help in the future, and that's definitively something that can help. We've also touched on before, someone said about a school having experience with someone with CF. That would be ideal, so you don't have to like faff about with trainings, training the teachers on what's Creon and what's the condition like, what to look out for in an emergency and stuff like this. But I'm sure your CF team will be great. Like when my little one went to nursery, our CF nurse went there and trained most of the teachers how to deal with Creon, especially when it was like the Creon micro and the tiny spoon. Like everyone was like, oh my God, how do I do this? And she came in, she trained them, and they were absolutely fine with it. I'm not sure if it's going to happen, higher up in schools, but if you're struggling and you ask them for help, I'm sure they will help out. And cystic fibrosis tools, there's a lot of documents that you can download and send to school about cystic fibrosis. I've sent loads to all the teachers and everyone that cared for Jacob, so they get familiar with it, and they're really good resources to use. So at first I was typing everything myself, and then I was like, there's actually loads of resources on the website, so just search for them and they are really useful.
Thank you so much, Julia. Diana has sent a message in the chat, and actually you're both coming to the Tea and Coffee Corner next week, so you might be able to chat about that next week together. And another one for Julia, who's answering this as a mum and as a physio, is it's very difficult to get my 2-year-old to do their physio. Do you have any tips for how I can persuade them to do it?
My biggest tip will be make it fun. Make it fun and encourage them to do it. My son, whenever I tell him not to do something, he will do it more and more. So I tend to tell him, like, Jacob, don't jump on the sofa, and he will jump on it even more. So that will make him to move the mucus and cough it up and be a great physio, He wakes up in the morning, we play music to wake up, and he dances and jumps on the bed. It makes us both ready for the day in a very positive way. Lots of bubble baths, bubble peps. We used to do like I used to get a jar, some water, and loads of like washing up liquid and a straw for him to blow, and he used to make like lots of bubbles, which he then was like smashing, and it was a really good game for him. Or blowing bubbles, and then he was running after the bubbles, so both running and blowing at the same time. Amazing for like younger ones. If he doesn't want to do anything, say he's unwell and he doesn't want to blow, he doesn't want to do any of the breathing exercises, I just tickle him. I tickle him and he laughs. And what happens when you laugh, you just like hold your breath, and then you get the like you got a really deep breath in, and I find that works perfectly in Jacob, and he coughs up everything that he has to. I sometimes even do it upside down. Like I take him, for his head to be a little bit lower than his lungs, and then I tickle him, and then he works wonders. Jumping on a trampoline, that's been mentioned before, a really good physio, especially when they have some friends around, and they can make it nice and fun, a game, at the football ball into the trampoline and they kick it around, and they really do sweat, and they really don't do the aerobic exercises that they need to. I get my son involved in, my exercises that I do. He does like strength, exercises, or like yoga exercises to open up his chest, anything that you can possibly involve them in and make it fun will work. I remember when he was first born and I had the percussion cup and I had to tap on his chest and on his back. He found it very funny. He was laughing. Obviously, that's a very individual. Some kids will hate it. Some kids will love it. But again, you can play now when Jacob's very unwell. I don't tap him anymore, but when he's unwell, I do, and I do like a drawing game on his back. So I kind of draw. Now we teach him letters. So, for example, I draw a letter A on his back, and if he gets it right, he says it's a letter A that I drew. I tap on his back, like, rather than clapping like this, I tap on his back. And, it kind of works. You just need to think of fun games to entertain them. Reward chat helps us. So if he does his physio and if he eats breakfast with his capture and crayon, he will get, a little gift, a little reward to keep him going.
That's all wonderful. Thank you so much, Julia. I'm passing back to you to ask the last question. I can't believe it's over. I feel gutted that it's over. This has been so wonderful.
Yeah. So the last question is for everyone. What advice do you wish your parents had been given when raising a child with cystic fibrosis? For Chawan, that will be raising a child who has a brother or sister with cystic fibrosis.
I personally, whenever I've been asked this question, I give the advice that my dad was given when I was first diagnosed. He spoke to a teenager with CF, and what she told him, he stuck with that my entire childhood, and it was such incredible advice. And she said to my dad, don't make CF this big mystery. If your kid is asking questions about CF, don't be afraid to answer them, because the child's living with this condition. It can be quite scary at times, and you will have loads of questions about it when you're a kid. Like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do this? Like, I think it's so important to get the truth from a young age. And I think when you get older, if you've grown up knowing enough about your CF, it makes transition to being more in control and responsible for your condition so much easier. And growing up, my dad would always answer any questions I had, and I think it's advice that he was given that I now want to always put forward and make sure more people hear it, because I think it was really good advice.
Can I quickly swoop in? My advice would be well, I think Rose's advice is awesome, but at the same time, I reckon that parents with CF need to be asking their kids more questions, because they get to a point, I'd say, about when they start taking responsibility, but it could happen when they're younger, where they essentially can feel when they haven't had crayon, or when crayon hasn't gone down the right way, or when they're starting to get a chest infection. That's a big one, but it feels a lot tighter. It feels like someone's holding your chest down. There's so many little signs and symptoms that you just learn exactly what they mean, and even if you haven't really experienced it before, it's just like bodily instinct. You know exactly what it means. And that's why when you get older, even in pediatrics, the doctors will start to ask the kid about how has your tummy been, how has your chest been, that kind of thing. So I'd say don't be afraid to also ask your child about how does your chest feel, how does your tummy feel, just like the doctors would, because that's always been a big thing for me, that I want my parents to understand that I know what's going on in my body, and I want them to listen to me when I say that, oh, I think I'm getting a chest infection, or I think we need to up my crayon, because there's my body. So that would be my big piece of advice.
Could I just add something? I think for me, my piece of advice is kind of just being as much as like coming to as many things like talking to teenagers with CF, like Ask YAG as much as you can. I know my mum had never even heard of CF except for she used to be a teacher at a school. She didn't teach the kid, but she knew there was a girl there with CF, and she did get pointed out to my mum at one point because obviously one of the people that work and teach her knew I had CF, and the girl, bless her, was not well, and obviously that worried my mum because she thought, well, my daughter's got this and she's not well, so what's is my daughter going to end up the same? And obviously she had no clue what CF was at all. So the worries that went through her head, like honestly, I just wish that my mum had come to stuff like this and to understand that not CF isn't the same for everyone, and hear how like what can happen and how to avoid situations, and ways around dealing with CF as a first time of like mom and of having CF. So I think coming to as many things like this and workshops and stuff for parents and just getting used to CF so that you know exactly how to deal with each situation as it comes smoothly, easily, I think would be so helpful, because it's just going to be like make lives a lot easier, less worrying and less stressful for like everyone.
I forgot to add the part. I know it's been mentioned a lot already, but Instagram is a really good place, not even to like search for cystic fibrosis, but even when you type in breathing games, obstacle courses that you can do with your child at home, you will get loads of inspiration. Like for Christmas last year, there was this trend when they used to light like lots of tea light candles, and they said Merry Christmas, like 10 candles, and whoever blew most of them like one. It is a breathing exercise because you need to say it and then get your breath out to actually put the most candles out. So it's a great game, and you can find loads of inspirations online.
From the perspective of a sibling, I would say to sorry, I just got a glitch there. I would say to explain to the sibling as well what is going on in the house, because they can tell if something has changed. Maybe explain the treatments as well, or the medication, and it avoids a lot of anxiety, and it is a really easy way to reassure them. Um, Pretending things are fine when they aren't fine is worse than the truth. If, the person with CF in your house is really, really sick or is in hospital, or maybe their last checkup wasn't so well, the mood in the house is going to change. And pretending and not telling everyone else who co-resides with you is just going to make them really, really anxious because they know that something's wrong, and but they can't quite pinpoint what it is, and it's much better to just be openly honest and just, so if you know, then it's like I don't really know how to articulate what I'm trying to say. When you know what's going on, you can calm your nerves a lot easier, especially, and then you know what questions you want to ask, and that's where you can get your reassurance from. And then, yeah. I would also encourage anyone that has a sibling with CF to seek out information, to research it, as the others have said, to go on Instagram, to read Instagram posts, articles. The more you know, the less scared you are and the less anxious you are. And going back to bouncing off of what someone said earlier about starting school, one thing that my brother did with help from my mom is he made a little notebook that was about his CF. So he decorated it on the front with a bunch of stickers, and then the first few pages had a few articles and paragraphs about CF, the different parts of CF that they thought applied to him and that his teachers at school should know. And it was really easy. It was a bunch of cutting and sticking, and they read it, and all of a sudden they knew everything they needed to know. And then they used that notebook to keep track of all the treatments that he was doing in school and making sure that he was doing them properly. Because in his instance, he did physio in school in the morning because he went to breakfast club and he had help from a teacher doing that. And so that teacher would sign off, um, or maybe leave a little comment if he wasn't feeling well. And it was just that constant communication. And yeah, he was involved in that activity as well, so it wasn't anything that he wasn't comfortable with, and it was a really good way of teaching him how to talk to and explain CF to other people for the first time.
And one thing I think is when you're introducing people to your child, like if they're at a play date and the child says hello to the parents, and you're having tea while they play or something, don't make CF the first thing every time. Sometimes it can't be avoided, but CF is a great thing, but it's not the only thing about the child. So then they get to know them as a person, so they know them before they know this. Can just, yeah, you're more than CF, although it is. I think it's good.
Laura, do you have an answer to that last question? No. Okay, no worries. I've just received an email from someone pointing out the elephant in the room, which is that everyone here is female. We do have one male YAG member. He is wonderful. He is always very, very busy, and so he couldn't make it tonight. But yeah, we don't have many boys, and we'd love to have more. Yeah, I don't know if any of the girls want to comment on that at all. If you got, oh, hello, Tails. Look at Tails' lovely cat. She got that. She got Tails this Christmas. How is
She's
she?
sat on my lap. She's been sat on my lap the whole time, and now she wants to make an appearance.
She is absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I don't know if any of you kind of want to, I don't know what you'd say about the lack of boys, but if you do want to kind of stop me rambling and cut in.
We have had a couple of boys join and then disappear again.
Yeah, that might
Okay.
be because like the last boy that joined, we all started talking about our prom dresses. Might be why. Just putting it out there.
Maybe.
Did you scare him off?
I think
Yeah.
we might have scared him off.
But Sean is great. Sean's
Yeah, Sean doesn't scare easy. I know we're nearing 9 o'clock. I just wondered, how tired are you all, YAG ladies? Give me like, if you're really, really tired, put your hand down here. If you're like full of energy, put your hand up here. Okay, cool. I'm going to ask you one last question. Do any of you want to tell everybody about the dictionary? Because that's out soon and it might be really, really useful for some people. Rosie and Tilly, and well, everyone looks very excited. I'm coming to Rosie because your hand went straight up.
So for the past, I think, 2 years now, we've been working on this children's dictionary called Cracking the Code of CF that explains common things you'll hear to do with CF in a way that kids can understand a lot easier. And it's based around secret agents who are helping you like crack this secret code. And there's, I think, is it 5 of us that are characters in it? I think. Yeah. So there's 5 of us that are like secret agent characters with different abilities that help you figure out, like help kids kind of learn and figure out these different things. We've got different categories. We've got like people in the hospital. We've got parts of the body. We've got some stuff about certain treatments, and we've been working really hard on it, and we think it's going to be really good once it's out. So we've been very excited to talk about it.
Thank you, Rosie. Tilly, did you want to add something?
Yeah, sure. I would just like to say that is the dictionary and it's awesome. And it's gonna be a great resource for the kids and siblings and friends, everything. It's gonna help everyone. I'm really excited about it. But at the same time, I think it's really helped like us. It's gonna be super cheesy again, but it's also helped us kind of take a bit more control over CF and be a bit more powerful and knowledgeable. I've learned so much. I didn't know what half those words were. And so it's really, really cool. And it's definitely been a talking point in like interviews or like conversations. Like I feel like I've got so much stuff to say now. Like I wrote a dictionary. It's really cool. So that's why YAG is so amazing, essentially. Because we've all learned so much from doing projects like that. So more YAG plug.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, people are saying, can we buy one? It'll be free. You don't need to pay for it. We're a charity. And yeah, I am hoping, yeah, so Jacqueline's put in, yeah, it'll be available on website and in print. I'm hoping end of March, but I'm not making any promises, fingers crossed. We're so excited. And yeah, these girls have written, well, girls plus Sean have written every single word. Yeah, it is the best thing ever, in my opinion. Oh, Ella, go for it.
Can I just say, I joined YAG maybe 3 months ago now. When I heard you'd done something about a dictionary, I thought you maybe suggested something for a dictionary. When I found out it was an entire book you'd written and designed, like done everything yourself, I was so impressed. And honestly, I hope that I can help you guys do more stuff like that. It sounds so cool. It's really great.
Thank you, Ella. That's so lovely. Thank you so much.
When you see, you'll be like, whoa.
Yeah, yeah. Like I kind of like, yeah, I've been working on it with these guys for 2 years, and every time I kind of open the PDF, I'm like, whoa, how have we done this? This is amazing. Yeah, I kind of don't want this to end, but thank you so much. If any of the parents have any feedback about this event, it'd be great if you could drop me an email with it.